And welcome back. Now, according to a recent report, South Africa's gold mining industry, that's approximately 130 years old, is slowly dying. Now, the world's once leading source of this precious metal is allegedly low in profitability and has a bleak future. So to discuss this with us, I'm joined by Sven Lunsche, who is the spokesperson for Gold Fields, to talk to us about the current situation in the gold mining industry. And I must also just indicate that Morning Live did extend an invitation to the Minerals Council of South Africa, but they declined due to other obligations. But with that said, it's good morning to Sven. Thanks for coming through.
Good morning, Sakina. Good morning to your viewers.
So, gold, this precious metal, this commodity that this country has really, been holding on to and which plays a big part in our GDP as a nation, we're told is slowly dying. Is that the case?
As always, there's never a simple answer to this question. Clearly, the gold mining industry is in a difficult position at the moment. Firstly, our gold is deep. It's underground. It's 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers underground, 2 kilometers underground. So it's extremely costly to get it out of the ground. With gold prices of 1,200, I think half of the mines currently, gold mines in this country, are not profitable. And in order to extend the life of mines, we have to invest heavily. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, a bit later. But at the moment, it is difficult for mines to make money with the current circumstances. Firstly, to go underground costs a huge amount of money. You have to pump water, you have to refrigerate, you have to ventilate underground, so it's extremely costly. Electricity costs, as we all know, have been soaring. Secondly, the cost of labor is escalating without any commensurate increase in productivities. So that is another issue. And secondly, I think what we're finding is that government regulation doesn't make it very attractive to invest at the moment. So investors are staying on the sidelines, so we're not getting the capital that we need to expand significantly into new productive areas. Long story short, but it's an industry that is at the moment not very profitable, could see at end of life, many of the mines 10 to 15 years. However, if the circumstances are correct, if the conditions, the legal framework, the relationship with unions are more on a win-win basis, I think we can extend the sunset industry for a lot longer than people believe.
And I think that would be to the benefit of all concerned.
Absolutely.
But as you touched on the labour issue, that's always a contentious one. And the report also indicates that the South African gold mining industry is not a profitable one. How so?
At the moment, the gold price is roughly 120,000, 1,200 US dollars, translates to in a region of about 500,000 rand per kilogram. And the majority of the costs that we're producing this kilogram at is often ahead of that. Now, if we break down the cost profile, around half of that is labor costs. So it's HR costs, it's training costs, but that's a lot of money. That's 50%. And we have seen wage increases well above inflation over the last 10 years. At the same time, productivity per worker has not increased at the same rate. So we're finding labor costs are well above, we believe, where they should be without any... What we are looking for, I think, as an industry, is to have a link to productivity. And the unions rightfully say we want inflation plus increases as a base, and then we can talk about productivity increase. I think we've reached a stage now where we have to say we have to do more than that. We actually have to link any gains in productivity to wage increases. So, in a way, labor has to start sharing the pain and the downside, but obviously also gain when the gold price is better, when we make more profits. We haven't seen that at the moment, and
But why haven't we seen that? Why haven't we seen a better relationship between labor and the owners?
There's lots of difficult issues to do with that. First of all, the industry is under economic pressure. So the owners, us, we've been trying to produce more profitably. We're not attracting investors. So we're actually trying to show investors that we can make a return on money. So we've been pushing harder on costs, which means we have been decreasing numbers. Labour is obviously not happy with the fact that the number of retrenchments are increasing in the industry. We're now below 100,000 people employed in the gold mining industry. It used to be 400,000.
Yeah, less than a fifth of what it was under apartheid. But what's your view on that? Because as you said, many view this as a sunset industry, but there may be hope. But how do you revive it?
I think we're going to have to be realistic that it's not going to be revived through more jobs. Eventually, in the supporting industry, maybe. If we, for example, move towards renewable energy, we could see a lot of jobs in supporting industry and solar industry. But the mine industry itself, the way it will survive is through investment in automation and technology. And we've seen that at our mine, we're investing heavily in technology, and that, I'm afraid, comes at the expense of labor. There are safety reasons for it. As you know, the industry has a terrible track record in terms of fatalities, and it's because at 3 kilometers underground you face enormous rock pressures and you want to move people away from the rock face. So we're investing heavily in technology. That, I'm afraid, comes at the expense of labor. Secondly, we have to be profitable. At $1,200, we have to cut costs. So we reduce our labor force. We focus on mining areas that are profitable. So a lot of the marginal areas we're closing down, which comes with job losses. So I think the trend is inevitable, but I think we can halt the losses. We can at least maintain them and retrain people. But that will take time, and I think it's time the industry at the moment doesn't have.
And, you know, you speak about the profitability of the industry, but at some point South Africa was the leading gold producer the world over. Now we're sitting at number 8. Yeah. And again, you know, is there something we can do to claw back some of the losses we've made in those type of situations?
With difficulty. Don't forget, the gold reserves and resources that are left in the industry are deep. They're below the current levels. So we have good gold resource and reserves left, but they're at 4 to 5 kilometers underground. To get there, first of all, you have to do it safely. Secondly, you have to do it profitably.
But it can be done.
It can be done, but it needs an investment in technology rather than labor-intensive investment. So I'm afraid the time where we're going to employ more people in mining itself are over. So what we will see is, though, that hopefully both in supporting industries, as we move to new technologies, we certainly believe that there can be an investment in those technologies, that mining suppliers can employ more people as they invest in new machinery, equipment. Secondly, I think the mines itself sit on good land. We can convert a lot of the land to non-mining use, such as agriculture, and all of us are working on that to see. So we see jobs rising, but not directly in mining. If we can access those resources, gold has, I think the gold mining industry in this country has a life, has a chance of extending from its current 10 to 15 years to maybe 20, 30 years. But it has to be an investment technology, not, I'm afraid, in direct job creation.
Well, as one of the main contributors to GDP, how much of a choice do we have then to ensure that we actually do what needs to be done to mine those reserves that are still there?
And absolutely. So don't forget, mining as a whole still employs roughly 500,000 people. It contributes to GDP. It's a good foreign exchange earner, and I believe it can be a leader in terms of technology and automation. We haven't seen that yet to the extent that we'd hoped for, but it can lead the industry, it can lead the world in technology and innovation. We have very good skills in this country. We train some of the best mining engineers. So we just need to put it to good use. What would help is a more supportive regulatory environment. And
what in the immediate term? What sort of immediate regulations could assist here?
I think we need, first of all, certainty. Investors hate nothing more than uncertainty.
What does that mean in layman's terms?
That for now, mining charter, we have agreed now, it's a 30% BE ownership. Done, deal. That's for the next 10 years. We get a commitment that's it. The game is not going to change again. Taxes, generally we have a good tax system in this country. So I think the industry generally, and I think other stakeholders are fairly happy with that. I think we need some more certainty and stability in the labor regime. What sort
of certainty and stability?
First of all, I think we need to combat the violence that is linked inevitably to strikes. We've seen now with the Sibanye strike, we've seen strikes become violent. A lot of inter-union rivalry, a lot of factional rivalry within unions. But it cannot carry on. We now have a strike, and although we have the legal right to get back to work, we haven't been able to because 200 people block access to the mine, and you don't want to escalate the violence. So you don't want to push people through at the risk of causing more turmoil and hopefully never death. So the violence has to be controlled, and government has a role to play in this. They need to act. I think the police need to act more firmly. I think the Labour Relations Act needs to have some kind of provisos that allows for violent strikes to be declared illegal. So there's a lot of regulatory issues that can be done. I think our relationships with the unions are terrible at the moment. Let's be frank about it.
Practically non-existent.
Non-existent.
And which leads to these violent strikes. Because as you spoke about the police, it just conjured up images of Marikana.
Clearly, yeah.
And, you know, that's not the way we need to go.
And rightfully they're showing restraint. And they have to show restraint. But on the other hand, when a group of people can prevent 3,000 people who want to go back to work to earn a living from doing so, you also have to say, first of all, we've got court interdicts against those people, but they cannot be enacted because the police are concerned about escalating violence. So, but there may be some special way of addressing this, maybe a special police force that deals with mining-related or labour-related violence. Secondly, I think the relationship between us and the union needs to be on a more sound footing, in the sense of let's negotiate on terms that are acceptable to everyone. Mm-hmm. Clearly, over the years, Labour has had a bad deal in the country. The mining industry, we know, has an incredible history of suppressing labour, of using forced labour over the years. But I think we're now at the stage where we do pay fair wages. The wages in the mining industry, the minimum wages, are well above most other industries. I do think we spend a lot on training. And I think Labour also needs to come to the party and to say, all right, let's share, we know you're in pain. Let's share the pain. Let's not take the above inflation increases when times are bad, but give us more of a share of the profits when times are good.
And Labour might, rebut by saying, how about the executives taking some of that pain as well? Yep. Because they get paid exorbitant salaries, if you look at what the labour force is earning generally. And that is something that has never sat well with the labour force, and it never will.
Yeah. No, look, there is a recognition there that executives also, and most executive remuneration is very transparent. The board has set links to performance. Don't forget also these executives are on demand. And I must say, I don't want to be an executive in this industry. You have to make difficult decisions on a day basis. So partly there is an argument to say they deserve their salaries, but in the environment of low wage increases, of tough conditions, executives have to share the pain. And I think we're starting to see that as well.
Well, Sven, thanks so much for coming through and having this conversation. And concern about the sunset industry, as it's now being called, that is gold mining in this country. But as Sven said, we do still have the reserves. However, it's about accessing those reserves. And that was Sven Lunsche. And he is, of course, as Goldfields spokesperson, talking to us about the lifespan of gold mining industry in South Africa. Let's take a break.